Good evening. This country has become one giant supermarket for the world drug trade, and that was never more clear than today. Authorities moved against two separate, powerful heroin rings. And in a separate case, an East European diplomat was arrested here in a major drug money laundering operation. We begin with the international heroin ring, which involved 8 cities here, 3 in Italy. NBC's Stan Bernard.
Just after dawn, in a heavy rain, the Italian police moved in on a house outside Palermo, Sicily. The Italian authorities, in cooperation with American authorities, began to make arrests in what one official called an enormous anti-drug operation. In all, 50 arrests were made in Sicily and in cities north of Rome. Luigi Rossi, the national director of the Italian criminal police, said at least 100 other arrest warrants were issued. About the same time, U.S. federal drug agents were making arrests in New York, Pennsylvania, California, Florida, and 3 other states. All of those arrested are charged with involvement in a mafia-controlled ring which smuggled heroin between Italy and the U.S. and then distributed through pizza restaurants and fast food outlets. These arrests were made in San Francisco. These men were picked up in Miami. The investigation began in Buffalo, where it was originally given the code name Busico for Buffalo Sicilian Connection. That's where these arrests were made. In New York City, 13 men were picked up.
The heroin was coming from Italy to the United States in 2 principal forms. It was secreted in wine bottles. It was also taped to the bodies of young females who were flying from Italy to the United States.
Those arrested and those still being sought were called a virtual who's who of top crime bosses on both sides of the Atlantic. Stan Bernard, NBC News, New York.
There were other arrests today involving synthetic heroin. Authorities say that nationwide, this kind of drug has caused at least 100 deaths. Since the summer in Pittsburgh alone, it's killed 25. Today, a federal strike force rounded up 6 suspected members of that ring that made and sold the killer drug, including the suspected ringleader. If convicted, they could face a minimum prison term of 20 years. Officials say the drug is so potent that one man who injected it died within seconds.
We have exclusive pictures of the Bay Area suspects, including this man. His name is Sergio Marange, the alleged kingpin of the local operation, along with Hector Zavala, who police believe is the number 2 man locally. And just 2 of the 200 people charged in both the U.S. and Italy today. And the Justice Department says as well some restaurants in San Francisco's North Beach are believed to be involved.
There were transactions in the restaurant, outside the restaurant. There were conspiratorial meetings in and out front of some of the restaurants beyond those alleged in the indictments. And some of the persons who are involved either in the management or ownership of some restaurants here are involved in the trafficking.
They would not, however, give us any names of specific restaurants, but El Padrino and Green Street was searched in the course of the investigation.
Well, those local arrests are just part of a transatlantic undercover probe that lasted 3 years. It all came together today when dozens of arrests were made in several U.S. and Italian cities. Charles Feldman reports from New York.
More than 200 people have been charged in the United States and Italy with taking part in the operation. Arrests and searches were made across Italy in a joint operation involving Italian police and the FBI. Arrests and searches in this country were made in 7 states, stretching from New York to California.
Looking at the allegations, this reveals a major international narcotics conspiracy involving both heroin and cocaine. These people are alleged to be members of the organized crime family. So it's a very, very significant case.
According to authorities, cocaine was exported from the United States to Italy, while heroin was imported to the United States from Italian sources. 2 principal methods were allegedly used to bring the drugs into the U.S. Heroin was often shipped in liquid form inside wine bottles. Some drugs were taped to the bodies of young women couriers. U.S. officials were clearly pleased with their accomplishment, offering reporters a more than ample look at some of those arrested. But officials were unable to explain why, although many of those charged are alleged members of the Gambino crime family, the family's reputed boss, John Gotti, was not implicated. Officials say it took 3 years to gather the information that led to Thursday's arrests and charges, and they say the people allegedly involved in the operation imported, and we quote, millions and millions of dollars of drugs into the United States. Charles Feldman.
Were charged. 8 U.S. cities and 3 cities in Italy were allegedly involved. We have 2 reports tonight, beginning with News Center 4's Greg Lyon.
Those arrested began arriving at the federal building shortly after 7 this morning. A total of 10 people, including the man the FBI identifies as the Bay Area kingpin, 51-year-old Sergio Marangi of San Francisco. His second-in-command, 40-year-old Hector Zavala of San Bruno, and Marangi's 22-year-old son, John of South San Francisco. They were part of a coordinated series of arrests that began in the pre-dawn in Italy, where over 130 people were charged. The arrests moved with the sun this morning to the United States, to Buffalo, Philadelphia, Newark, New York City, Miami, Rockford, Illinois, and San Francisco, where FBI Special Agent in Charge, Dick Held, drew the Mafia connection.
A question is raised, do we have Mafia involved in the Bay Area? We would say that very clearly that Sergio Marangi has direct ties with the Mafia and in fact has been charged by Italian authorities for his connections with the Mafia and international narcotics trafficking.
The San Francisco investigation also tied Marangi to the Carlo Gambino family in New York. U.S. Attorney Joseph Rusinello.
The mob doesn't deal with just anybody who goes and rings Carlos Gambino's doorbell. You have to have a certain amount of credibility. It's something that you earn. And Marangi has demonstrated that he's earned that kind of access.
In New York, 13 people, many of them believed to be members of the Gambino family, were arrested. And many of them were arrested here, at the Cafe Giardino, where a party was underway this morning when agents broke in a scene described by James Fox of the FBI.
An agent went to the microphone and said, in effect, many of you have had your last dance. We're the FBI. You're under arrest.
For federal investigators, the case showed for the first time a connection between the Mafia and cocaine traffic, with cocaine moving from the United States to Italy and being traded for the Mafia's more traditional product, heroin. This afternoon in San Francisco, the 10 arrested so far were arraigned before a federal magistrate on a variety of charges, some of which carry the possibility of life in prison. They will be prisoners at least over the weekend until a bail hearing early next week. In San Francisco, I'm Greg Lyon, News Center 4.
This is Emerald Ye. FBI agents searched this restaurant in San Francisco's North Beach area today. They were looking for evidence they say may help them prosecute the 10 persons arrested in the Bay Area for drug trafficking. FBI agents say North Beach is a primary place where the alleged Bay Area drug lords came to do business.
There were transactions in the restaurant, outside the restaurant. There were conspiratorial meetings in and out front of some of the restaurants beyond those alleged in the indictments. And some of the persons who were involved either in the management or ownership of some restaurants here are involved in the trafficking.
The alleged kingpins worked in two worlds. They bought cocaine in South America. Some of it came back for sale on San Francisco streets. The rest went to Italy, where the cocaine was traded for heroin. The heroin was then smuggled from Europe to New York and 7 other American cities, including San Francisco.
The Bay Area is a major cocaine consuming area, and it has got to be supplied from someplace. What we, the FBI, would allege is Sergio Marangi being the leader of a major importing group with Mafia connections.
The suspected head of the San Francisco drug connection, Sergio Marangi, lived here in San Francisco's Lakeside District, a fashionable upper-middle-class neighborhood. His home was searched, but agents would not say what, if anything, was found. Mrs. Jessie Haddock lives next door to the Marangis.
It's always friendly, very nice.
But are you surprised by what you've heard about this today?
Yes, very shocking.
Some properties were seized by the FBI, including these 2 units on the 500 block of Lombard Street that's also in North Beach. FBI agents believe today's arrest will help to dismantle a sophisticated cocaine and heroin network that was making the Bay Area an important stop in the international drug world. Emerald Ye, News Center 4.
Federal authorities today moved against a diplomat suspected of doing a huge laundry business.
Today's indictment comes after a year-long undercover investigation that late this summer led to the secret life of this man, Barudin Bejetic, the Consul General in Chicago for the government of Yugoslavia. For For the hundreds of thousands of Yugoslav Americans in the Chicago area, the debonair Bežetic is well known and respected. But federal agents say Bežetic has been busy with a lot more than granting visas and attending Yugoslav ceremonial functions. Federal agents who have been following Bežetic say the Consul General has been using his diplomatic cover in a smuggling operation between the United States and Yugoslavia. U.S. Customs agents, shown here in an undercover photograph, posed as mafia figures and got Bežetic to smuggle what he was told were the profits of American drug operations. Authorities say the regular flights of Yugoslav airlines out of Chicago were a key to the drug money scheme, and that the Consul General arranged for the drug money to be sent under diplomatic seal, avoiding customs inspections. According to authorities, on at least 4 occasions, money the Consul General was told was Mafia drug money was sent from Chicago to Yugoslavia. In Yugoslavia, the money was taken off the flights and deposited in banks and then wired to Yugoslavian banks in New York, where it could be withdrawn without being traced. This afternoon in Chicago, federal agents sprung their trap, luring the Consul General in a limousine to a small airport to pick up what he was told would be $2 million more in drug money.
You're under arrest, sir. I'm Consul General. You are under arrest.
The Consul General tried to resist being put in handcuffs.
The glass, sir? No. Please, sir. No.
In Philadelphia, 2 associates of the Consul General were arrested in the same trap. Hubert Cole, who authorities described as a money laundering expert and leader of an arch-conservative tax protest group in Texas, and a Yugoslav American from Dallas, who authorities say was not only part of the drug money scheme, but may be a long-hidden East Bloc spy. At the same time, in Dallas, agents carried out a number of search warrants, including one at this janitorial service, which authorities say is owned by one of the Consul General's associates and cleans the offices of defense contractors. Authorities say there is evidence that some of the janitors have been stealing Defense Department documents and sending them back to Belgrade. Commissioner of Customs William Von Raab.
This kind of sleazy activity by people or institutions in positions of trust will not be swept under the rug.
Federal agents say it is still too early to tell whether the Consul General and the others acted on their own or on instructions from the Yugoslav government. But already, this case has caused a stepped-up surveillance of other Yugoslav diplomats now posted in this country. Brian Ross, NBC News, Chicago.